the process, and they're here to actually give you what they found and the recommendations that they made to the SABC. Without much ado, I'd like to introduce the fact that we have the chair of the commission, Ms. Barbara Watson. I call her Auntie Barbara, and Tate Fana Shozi, who's here to actually give you the presentation. And Barbara, if you'd like, please come to the front for the presentation.
That's fine. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good day. Yes. Thank you very much for coming to listen to us, providing you with the feedback of the work that we have been doing. Before I go into the report, I thought I'd just like to make a few comments, which I hope will set the tone for the way we go forward and how we deal with this matter. First of all, we're moving towards the campaign on gender-based violence, the 16 days of campaign. Our country has been going through one wave of another of gender-based violence. Last week, it was the gender-based violence conference that had been called by the president. We all heard through SABC and other media channels exactly what is going on in this particular area. Today, you are going to be getting another bit of that, less dramatic than last week, because we are giving you a report and we are not allowing the victims or the complainants to speak for themselves. We are giving to some of their pain. I'm hoping that in the context of that, and also not forgetting the case that is playing itself out in the Eastern Cape, and a lot of issues around how do you report gender-based violence. There's been a lot of talk about the way we question, and as a gender activist, I know that sometimes I also do have a beef with the media in the way you report gender-based violence. Sometimes just a little less sensitivity to the victims and their families. And I am hoping that today, as we give you our report, the nature of your questions will be tempered with a little bit of sensitivity, particularly as we are talking about people who are your colleagues. So, we come from a very dark place, and hopefully we're moving into the light. And the significance of that, perhaps, today is Diwali. If there are any people here who celebrate Diwali, the Feast of Light, I wish you well. And I hope that that light is going to begin to guide us and to guide this particular organization as you move out of darkness into light. Now, gender-based violence. We are particularly looking at sexual harassment at the SABC. Is it on slide mode already? I have given you just the first slide is really just to give you an idea. The definition that we used and the approach that we use towards investigating sexual harassment. Sexual harassment, I think the bold in red is very important. It isn't a biological problem that you can get a doctor to remedy with a prescription. And because it is not a biological problem, it is socio-cultural, and it's deeply embedded in society and how we perceive women and men and ascribe roles. And because of this, it is a logical consequence of the gender inequalities and sexism that already exist in our society. I go on to just give you an idea. I'm not putting you through a gender lesson, but I really just do want you to understand the approach that we adopted, so that you don't ask us questions that would seem like this was a legal process. It is also very important that we understand that there are different types of sexual harassment. In some instances, it's a one-off matter, the quid pro quo type of sexual harassment. In some instances, there is this ongoing, relentless demand of sexual favors by a senior employee on a junior employee. And all of this leads to a very toxic work environment that finally leads the complainant to resign. Now, that is the backdrop that I would like you to bear in mind. The other thing that I would also like you to bear in mind is the limitation of the commission. This was not a judicial commission of inquiry that had powers to subpoena or force people to come. It was just an internal commission that was set up by the SABC management with approval and support of the board to explore. So all that we could do on receiving complainants' wish to see us would be to then write to the alleged perpetrator and say, Mr. X, we have received an allegation from Ms. X that you have been or have been and still is sexually abusing her. We would like to give you an opportunity to come and talk to us and respond and put your case. If Mr. X doesn't want to come, we also follow it up with another email. And ultimately, closer to the end of the process, we then informed Mr. X that, by the way, Mr. X, we have investigated the matter and we are going to make a finding and recommendation without your input. And we have two such cases. We came across two such cases during the course of our work. And of course, the cases had been fully investigated, information corroborated, names of people that had been given by the complainant, people were invited, documentation sought from the SABC, and treated almost as if he had been there. So our recommendations are also quite relevant to those particular cases, and later on in the presentation, I think Mfana will be touching on that. So I'm not giving you specific findings. I think Mfana is going to be addressing those. But I also want to highlight something which I didn't cover in my opening comments, that we have a set of complainants that came to see us, where in our report we actually do mention that Barbara Watson approached the Commission of Inquiries on Sexual Harassment, leveling accusation against Mfana Shozi for sexually harassing her. So those cases have got names and they have specific recommendations. And then we have another group of cases. This is a group from those that we call the whistleblowers. We had an email address that had been set up for our use. And the whistleblowers would say, we want to come and see you. And in most instances, at that point, they would be using nom de plumes. And only later on, they would phone and say, no, I'm ready to come and see you. When they came to see us, it was actually quite interesting that they told us that the reason why they chose to come and see us was they Googled my name and they Googled Mfana's name. And of course, they found that this is the former chairman of the Commission on Gender Equality. He's never been an employee of SABC, so they had confidence in him and his independence. And they Googled my name, and they also found that Barbara Watson is a professional social worker. She's been through the Truth Commission and all of these other processes, and we can also trust her. And they would say, because of that, we felt you were independent enough and you had credibility. I'm mentioning this because this is a very critical point in the life of the SABC. There's a lot of fear amongst employees. I don't have to tell you where that fear comes from. That dark place that the institution is coming from. So in everything that is done, issues of confidentiality and credibility matter a lot. A lot of them said there was what? Trust deficit. Yes, that's the expression that a lot of people use. So from the testimonies and information of these whistleblowers, we haven't even given the CEO the comprehensive list of those people. Because first of all, these are people who have given us names and names of people saying that Madoda, who is the CEO of SABC, took Barbara to Mauritius for a holiday. At a time when we were advertising, Nomsa, what's your post? When there was an advert of GETV position. And when Barbara and Madoda came from Mauritius, Barbara was telling the world that she's going to get that job. And in the meantime, Barbara only has a grade 12, and Nomsa and all the many others who have the credential applied for the job. And of course, as fate would have it, a week later, Barbara is announced as the new GE. You see? So those are the people that give us the names of these people and the names of the beneficiaries. Now, the terms of reference did not enable us to investigate and corroborate all these. They remain allegations made by certain people. And it is for that reason that we are not releasing those names yet, because we need to come to some agreement with the SABC as to how those cases are going to be handled. But we also have specific recommendations around those cases, which Mfana will mention. And the cases that we have received, if it pleases you later on in the presentation, we would like to give you a snapshot of one or two of the cases. Where did most of the cases come? It was actually interesting that when we were appointed, we were told that the request emanated from television side. But the interesting thing is that most of the complainants have come from radio. We're not sure whether there's still an element of fear to come forward. We received complaints and handled cases from all regions except the Western Cape. Now that is very interesting because we didn't even get a whisper about Western Cape. So I know that in government circles, the Western Cape is a province that's almost like a Balkan state of South Africa. So I don't know if the same applies at SABC. But it is one of the provinces that we do not have a case from. We have some cases from KZN, and I'm sure all of you have been following some of the cases from Lotus FM. And someone's phone, someone's baby's crying here. In fact, we had quite a few cases from KZN, and it was the only province where we decided to move to and have hearings there. All the other provinces, we invited people to come and see us in Johannesburg. So I think this is just the broad paintbrushes of the Commission, our work. We are going to give you a 5-pager at the end of this with all the details, so you don't have to worry to capture everything that we are saying. So I am now going to hand over to my colleague, Mfana Shozi. As I said earlier, Mfana is the former chairman of the Commission on Gender Equality, and he will come and take over. I didn't go through slides one by one because I thought it's easier if we talk. But I would like, as we move forward, for all of you to remember later on when we do Q&A, let us remember that we are talking about our colleagues. And let's deal with the information sensitively.
Thanks, Chair. It was very nice to be late. For the past 12 years I was the Chair, so it's always nice to follow. And I think I had a wonderful chairperson who was leading me on gender equality matters. I don't wear spectacles, and I always argue with my chair that I come from the road area, so I can see from very far. I think maybe today I'm a little bit, but I'll try my best. I'll just come straight to the issue of special favors. I'll just give you a snapshot of the findings, and I think that's what you are really interested in. I think the Chair has spoken about the issue of the special favors. I think what is important is that the special favors for us, I give you two issues that usually came up. It's either I give you a job, give me sex, or you give me money. There's one case which I'm going to actually allude to. So, and people also on the list, on the whistleblowers list as well, is what people said. But I think the other critical issue about this is that with issues of special favors, there is a benefactor and a beneficiary. Both of them have benefited, you know. Whether the other one is oppressed or not, but maybe it's actually been given a position, so he's afraid to come forward. Because if that is found, the investigation is conducted, he or she might be demoted or fired, and so on. So that's why it makes it very difficult to actually investigate the issues of special favor. But I think we have a recommendation around that, and I'm going to go around that. And the other issue that is also critical is that we did not have any complaint from a man who has been sexually harassed. All the cases, because this is a gender space, women have actually come forward. There was no men who have actually come before us, except one who laid a complaint because one female is actually, it has been alleged that in the circles, people were saying that man is sexually harassed that employee. So she came before and said, please clear my name. But when that female came before us, indeed she cooperated and said, yes, I was sexually harassed, but I did not report it. And as a commission, we felt that that needs to be actually processed as well. Let me start with the one case, the KwaZulu-Natal case. So we are using pseudonyms here because we don't want the SABC to be taken to task on SABC to process these matters. We received a submission from Ms. X alleging that a witness with others the sexual harassment which entailed Mr. Y. So we received a submission from a man from KZN alleging that is an employee in KZN was actually sexually harassed. But what is critical about this case is that, I'll just summarize it, is that the person who was sexually harassed lodged a complaint with SABC HR, and that complaint was processed informally. There was no conclusion. At the time of our commission, the person who had actually lodged that complaint did not come forward. But a particular whistleblower from KZN lodged a complaint with us. We wrote the complainant. I would call the former complainant, the person who had been alleged to be sexually harassed. She never even responded to our emails. But when we investigated, we unearthed that that particular person has been given a position at a particular station by the alleged sexual harasser, and therefore, in our view, we think that they were now cooperating on this. And we feel that the SABC should investigate this, because there is documentation that indeed there was an alleged sexual harassment that is actually taking place. So, in a nutshell, what has actually happened? Chair will always add if you feel that I've left something very important in relation to this. But yeah, and what is also critical, I need to be aware because I don't want to, must be very careful, I must use pseudonyms, so I know these names off by head. So, we have also recommended that the SABC should actually follow this up and make sure then that, and we also feel then that HR did not do what it's supposed to do. In this regard, the SABC sexual harassment policy was not followed. And we are saying it must be followed. SABC should actually take this up with HR and investigate in terms of what is supposed to happen. But I think we've actually given very clear recommendation in relation to this case. We are saying that there's enough evidence to prove that the act of sexual harassment occurred, witnessed by more than one person, and was formally reported to HR, but badly handled by HR. The organization policy was distorted. There was this thing about sexual harassment we've actually found at SABC, is that there's a very clear policy. But on issues of sexual harassment, HR and managers would just decide that, no, let's not follow the policy, let's have maybe a progressive hearing, let's just have an informal hearing, the complainant will not be informed about the outcome of the investigation and so on and so forth. And opting deliberately not to follow the policy. So, evidence exists of random and frequent cases of sexual harassment and harassment over the years. Victims, what is also critical is that with this one, what is also critical is that one of the very senior people at the SABC traveled this case. You know, when it was reported, said no, it's one of those things. And people have actually come before us as well, have even said that sometimes when you go to HR, they'll always tell you, no, it happened to me, and don't worry, we're gonna be all right. See, and people always say this, that if you're a woman, you always go up through sexual harassment, you sleep around and so on, so don't worry. And this really victimized complainants of actually come before us. Chair, there's another case that I think recommendation in relation to this particular case. We feel that at that particular station in KZN, leadership is very weak. You know, if you can put it in Zulu, Ukama time, everyone is doing what he or she likes. And I hope you all know that even reports of, in one of the books that's just been released, of a former employee being raped inside the SABC premises. Evidence exists of random and frequent cases of sexual abuse and harassment over the years. Victims do not get the protection they deserve from the institution. The station is always, you know, this station, out of actual found out that had always had a male manager. Patrak is rough, exacerbated by the fact that it is Indian station staffed by Indian workers for an Indian audience. One woman said to us, the Indian men regard the station as their fiefdom, and the women freelancers as their harem to do with as they pleased. What is also critical was that we also, from that investigation, there was also another case where Miss A was dismissed following the circulation of nude pictures without her consent. I think we must mention this, we know that you have this information. This was done to placate and preserve the reaction of listeners on social media. You know, gender equality matters. You know, don't relate this to any other nude pictures, just focus on what I'm telling you about. This, on gender equality matters. A woman's pictures were taken without her consent. They were distributed. And the SABC took a decision. They said, this is going to actually upset our listeners, upset everyone. Therefore, we are going to actually fire this woman. You know? In our view, we feel that SABC has actually corroborated with the person who's actually distributed pictures. You know? Instead of hearing the story of this woman, what actually happened and so on. So we felt that the human rights of that particular victim were not was violated, was gender oppressed in relation to that. And I think the SABC should really look into that. We understand that listeners are important, but they must also understand the issues surrounding gender equality and human rights of people. As I said, don't link it to any other issues. As I've said, leadership is lacking from, we also felt then that, more especially, you know, most of the issues, and I think Chair must be blunt on this, they come from radio, but we feel then that at a senior level, when it comes to issues of sexual harassment, leadership is lacking in dealing with these particular matters. We have also seen that the issues of gender equality and human rights, they are also lacking. Why we're saying this is that a person will be accused of sexual harassment. The case will be lodged. And management won't even suspend that person. The victim will work with that particular person every day, sometimes hours reduced, you know. There's so many other things that are going to happen. And the victim will always be victimized. And when the report has been finalized, it won't be shared with the victim, but shared with the perpetrator. No, there are so many other things. So I'll move fast, Chair. Our recommendation is that head office must provide leadership and demand implementation of organized policies. This case of Ms. Y must be followed up and the wrongs corrected. In other words, open the case afresh as it happened today and follow the procedures. We also feel then that if you have lodged a complaint of sexual harassment and now don't want to come forward just because you've benefited, I think SABC should follow the policy. We feel that so HR must also go for training on many fronts, especially issues of sexual harassment. There is a Bloemfontein case. In 2014, Ms. Z was sexually harassed, and sexual harassment included unwelcome hugging, inappropriate touching, conditionally asking her for a date. The worst was when the perpetrator walked into the office of the victim with an erected penis and asked her to touch it. The victim was livid, but did not report it as she thought she could handle it. The refusal to do all this led to the perpetrator being nasty towards her and being very undermining of her authority and creating a hostile looking environment. Just imagine. Various documents were provided and people named in the documents were interviewed to corroborate the allegation. The alleged perpetrator was also interviewed and other officials. The documents and emails all confirmed that the alleged perpetrator was difficult and indeed undermined Ms. Z. Two high-level reports by head office officials meaning that at their meetings in Free State, you know what, the other issue, the SABC knew that there was a sexual harassment taking place at their Bloemfontein regional office. But they said because it's not reported, no, they're not going to do anything about it. I think there's a duty on the employer when sexual harassment issues have been raised to make sure that they're investigated and actually engage the victims of these matters. The alleged perpetrator denied, you know what, all of them who came before us, they denied this thing. Said, no, I'm a Christian. One of them even paraded the Rosary chain. Rosary. Said, no, I'm a Christian. So it means when you have a rosary, then you cannot, and we know what is happening in the Eastern Cape.
Or I'm a married man.
I'm a married man. So the alleged perpetrator denied any sexual harassment, undermining of victim, despite evidence presented to him. His defense is that his straightforward, no-nonsense attitude misinterpreted for being undermining. Another defense for him was that he's a hard worker, he knows HR policies, and that's why people are jealous of him and so on. He further stated that he only hugged her for the erected penis we put it to him. He further stated that he only hugged her once when she was dismissed and he had to give her the dismissal letter, and which made her cry, and then she comforted her. Complainant said that she is older and more confident now. She did not report that at that particular time, but the SABC was aware of it. It's even in the documents where they discuss all these things. The only option the SABC said, okay, there's this sexual harassment case here in Bloemfontein. Let's just have an awareness on sexual harassment and educate people about awareness rather than processing the actual case. But the complainant said she's older and more confident now, hence her coming forward. She wants justice and to make sure the alleged perpetrator never does this to someone else or younger vulnerable women. But the argument also picked up is that I would call them sexual predators. Most of them whom we've actually found that they've actually done this, they're very arrogant. Very arrogant. When they come before us, we really see that, who are you? You know, you won't even touch me. You know, you could see even how they will respond to us. You know, and with the calm of the chairperson, we were able to handle them. You know, with my KZN blood, sometimes it was difficult. The chairperson could calm me down. Channel Africa case 3. I'm not going to go to all of them. Allegation of sexual harassment against the line manager leading to resignation from a full-time employer. A union member, and another important point. I don't want to forget this one. We have picked up as the commission then that unions at the SABC don't care about sexual harassment. They've never assisted women in sexual harassment. Even those that come before us, when you ask them about these things, you know, they were not assisting us. We even asked them how many cases of sexual harassment they are aware of at the SABC. And we feel that they should champion issues of sexual harassment, you know. Yeah. And even their policies, you know, they are there, but they're not assisting. So, as I've said, HR accused of colluding with managers when grievance was lodged but never finalized. Senior manager interviewed accused of committing of unprofessional and poor work ethic. Despite all the accusations, she was never suspended or punished for this behavior. You see, there was a report in one of the cases. And I must commend that internal audit person who wrote that report. Just a finance person. That was a good report. But it needed an HR person who understands sexual harassment issues and gender issues. Because I think the report said it was an unprofessional conduct. But when you read the report inside, there were a lot of sexual harassment that's actually taking place. But people opted, they chose only the unprofessional conduct at the expense of the entire report. So, as I've said, all people have actually come before us. They deny sexual harassment. That they've actually collected in. Another point, Chair, that I think I'm not sure I will put it in here, but I know it's in the report, is that because of sexual harassment, one whistleblower said to us, you know what? Sometimes, not all of them, some people at SABC will promise students employment who are at the vicinity, I think UJ and others, to say, no, I'm going to employ you and sexual harass them. So, which is something that SABC, when we educate our staff members, should make sure that we deal with it. The case number 4, the allegation includes sabotaging her work and by updating and deleting segments in pre-recorded work and always offering her leave home despite refusal, touching her in an appropriate manner, demanding that she works late shift so that he could be alone with her. There's other what we have actually found out, that people actually sexually harassed women at SABC are in most cases are senior managers who are people who've actually gone to allocate work, that sometimes allocate them at night and so on and so forth. So, out of desperation, she approached, she approached in 2018, approached politicians. They asked the board to investigate the matter. All this included in the dossier. So I'll move very quickly because some of these cases are similar. So we feel that the SABC should also look into this case and look at the perpetrator and follow the policy. This one. Case 5. Chair will add. Ms. B reached the sexual harassment with regards to sexual advances made by Mr. A. Mr. A is headline manager from Channel Africa. Mr. A will occasionally compliment her on how she dressed, offer to take her to salon to do her hair, to buy her clothes, a car and a flat. At some point she said, no, do your hair, I'll buy you a car, I'll buy you clothes, I'll even buy you a flat. In fact, the alleged perpetrator said to us, yes, I said all those things. I offered to actually buy a flat. I wanted her to actually be a manager of those flats and so on. And we asked a number of questions in relation to that. At times, he used to take her out and she agreed very reluctantly. We asked her why you agreed. She said, this is my manager. I was afraid that he was not going to actually schedule me if I don't agree. All this made Ms. B to be very uncomfortable as she informed the commission that this made her days longer at work. She agreed to go out with Ms. A because she was afraid that if she does not agree, to his request, she was not going to be scheduled. They once went to a waterfront now called Brightwater Commons. When they came back from that, Mr. A then asked her to give him a kiss. She declined, and he then asked for a peck, and I asked the chair what is a peck, and the chair said to me, little kiss on the face. That's why I put little kiss on the face. And she also declined the request. Mr. A looked very disappointed, and she jumped out of his car and rushed to her home in disbelief. After she refused her sexual advances, her work performance was never appreciated by her line manager. She was always wronged and victimized. Her hours were reduced from 8 hours to 6, which was later resolved by one of the managers after the managers actually intervened. In his testimony, Mr. A agreed that he had Ms. P and gave her following monies: 1,000 rand, 400 rand, 1,000 and other monies that she could not remember. He indicated that there was a time when she was looking for accommodation, and he spoke to the person who owns flats. Mr. A concurred that he wanted to buy the flats and let Ms. B to stay there and be the manager. Mr. A agreed that they met at the waterfront, but solely to discuss the Obama leadership proposal. And we asked, why you go to the waterfront? Why don't you discuss in the office? Mr. A added that after he had finished the meeting, he bought Ms. B airtime. After cross-examination, Ms. A agreed that his action could be, we asked him, your actions seem to depict a blesser. Are you not a blesser? You're giving all this out, and you know about blessers. She said, yeah, I could say that they are, but I'm not a blesser. You are just, he said to us, we came from the same country, I was just assisting my countrywoman. Then the chair asked, did you ever take this woman to your house so that your wife could see? And he said, no. Why? So that's why we are saying then that these are the very pertinent questions that you must ask about sexual harassment. People will always say, but there's no evidence. There's a lot of evidence in these matters. I've said this. He knew that his family was never informed of Miss P, and Miss P never visited his house. Miss A denied ever wanting to kiss her, Mr. A, that he proposed love to her, or denied all sexual allegations made against him. In our view, Mr. A violated the SABC sexual harassment policy and other relevant legislation, especially Code 2005. He could not provide a compelling reason why he refused why he reduced Miss P working hours. You know, the computer, we put reduced and is refused. The commission conclusion is because she refused to succumb to his sexual advancement. Our view is that the hours were reduced solely because they were reduced after the request has been refused. So our view is that they were reduced because Miss refused the sexual advancement. He could not explain why he was doing the thing that he was doing. But our also issue is that the manager of this perpetrator was aware of this, did not suspend this person, did not do anything. And that was our problem. And instead, she called the meeting and intervened and said, reinstate the hours. We felt that China Africa management grossly failed to hold Mr. A accountable or discipline him for reducing Ms. P's hours, as management was aware of the show. Why we're saying this is, hours were reduced. The manager knew exactly that there was a sexual harassment hanging, a sexual harassment case hanging. So a conclusion could have been made that these were reduced because this one actually sexually harassed this one, or because refused the advances. Another very critical issue, the report was not shared. What is also important about this is that with this case, investigation was also conducted. There was no harassment that was found. Sexual harassment was found. And the perpetrator was free. But in our view, we feel that there is sexual harassment. And we want SABC to restart the process, discipline the person involved, and all those that were involved in colluding with the perpetrator. And our view is that Mr. A was not suspended whilst the investigation was proceeding. You could see for yourself, I think I've said this. Case 6. Hey, this one is, it needs a social worker. Who's the chair of the commission. This one, but I'll try and run through it. She reported that on her first day of work at the SABC, her manager was on leave for a week, even though he had been part of the interviewing panel. When her manager returned to work, he came to her office to greet her. In the process, gave her a hug. But she's saying that that hug was very long and was suspicious. He then immediately commented about Miss J's perfume, which he said smelled sexy and he wished they were sharing an office. This is the manager. Miss J said thank you and went to her office. This person just 1 week at the office. 1 week. Miss J further reported that every day he would stare at her in a way she found offensive. One day he called her to his office and told her that she must feel free when she's around or next to him. Mr. H also suggested that Miss J should not address him as Mr. H, but should use his name, first name. Address me as in front of the ratios. Don't say my boss is. So feel free around me. You'll hear. Miss J said that Miss A said to her, Miss J, sit down, feel free around me. And Mr. H said, I have noticed that you like nice clothes. If you can allow me to feel your body, I will buy you anything you like. Just imagine a stranger feeling your body. Miss J informed the commission that she was shocked and stood up and moved towards the door. He then smiled and said to her, don't do this, Miss J. I would not hurt you and I will make sure that no one will know about this. Even in case I will never know. Miss J told him that she was married and respected him as a man. What is also critical is that this employee, her husband worked at SABC at the time, was also an HR person. And this woman, when she went home, she will always discuss this with her husband. Ms. J indicated that she wanted to ensure that the relationship is a professional one. Ms. J then went out of his office. After those incidents, the manager started abusing her and victimizing her. At one point, the woman fainted at work and was taken to the hospital. She then reported the matter to SABC, but the investigation was never concluded. He sent a colleague to her desk with a picture. This man now starting to victimize Miss J and send a colleague to her desk with a picture of a gun, and this man asked this man to tell Miss J that he was a soldier, and showed the picture of the gun, and also send a scaring email with gross pictures of suffocating pigs, etc., etc. But we asked the SABC to give us the details of this in terms of the emails. We could not get this. Miss J, and I've said, resigned, but Miss J resigned as the environment became too stressful and toxic for her. Her husband also worked for SABC in HR, witnessed all that was happening to his wife because he did not want to be seen to interfere, though was affected by this. He ended up resigning too. You could see unemployment caused by sexual harassment, poverty of children. These are the impact of sexual harassment. Stress. All families, all of us, monies, hospitals. So, if you can read I'm even afraid to say KPMG gender-based violence report, you could see that it costs us 40 billion rand to treat gender-based violence in this country. It's not 50 billion rand. Every year. SABC evidently, you know what happened was that these are managers, right? CEO. Then this poor, I'll call a poor woman, because I'm also poor, is actually fighting against a big Durban beachfront tide. The lodged a complaint. The complaint was never processed. Resigned, took the matter to CCMA, tried to get lawyers, and she filed the matter with the CCMA. She was late by 3 days. She came to CCMA, and CCMA said, "You are late by 3 days," and asked SABC, "Can we condone this?" The person who was from SABC said, "Don't condone."
And all of them are men.
All of them are men. Don't condone. And you know what? I wish I was that commissioner, and that commissioner agreed to say, "We're not condoning, we're not taking this case." Now, what was left to this woman is to take this case to the labor court, and she does not have money to do so. And the SABC knew exactly that whoever was responsible, that I know if she doesn't win at the CCMA, the case is going to be buried, because she's not going to be able to take this to the CCMA. So SABC refused the condonation. Ms. H refused to appear before the other important thing is that this is the case where this person refused to appear before us. Very arrogant. We sent 2 emails. She said, "No, I'm busy with this and that and that." And then chairperson cornered him. Then she reverted to the union. The union wrote to us, but we said, "Come." He wanted to see the allegation before she came to us. He said, "We're going to share the allegations when you come to us. Come to us," and so on. Then he never came. Our analysis confirmed that Ms. H, our analysis that this person is used to these things, of actually dodging formal processes. The reason canvass was that they wanted to see allegations before they come to the commission. Our analysis confirmed that Ms. H was in the mission to frustrate the commission. Ms. H ignored 2 invitations sent to him from the chairperson of the commission and never responded to them. Ms. H never participated in any forum that was designed to ventilate and make him account in relation to the sexual harassment allegations leveled against him. He has never accountable to this. Okay? Although, with the recommendation, I'm not going to get to recommendations, because I think at the end of this, there is a document we're going to see. But although Ms. J lodged a grievance, it was never handled properly inside the SABC. The same case was dismissed on a technicality. SABC should immediately suspend Ms. H and issue sexual harassment case against him. SABC should appoint a chairperson who understands equality matters, human rights, and labor-related matters to chair this. Let me just go quickly. Case 7 is.
I think we don't need to do the other cases.
Okay, it's fine. You want the recommendation, Chair, quickly? 3 minutes? Recommendations.
I think maybe before you do the recommendations, if I could just read out the findings.
Okay.
But in that particular case that we found left, the couple found. Oh. The couple. It's important to remember or to note that the couple has finally divorced. So this is the tragic cost of sexual harassment. A family that was stable, husband and wife working, suddenly they are living in abject poverty just because of sexual harassment. And I think it's very important that the impacts that Mufana referred to there. At the end of the day, sexual harassment might look like a minor crime, but the impacts can be quite horrendous. So I think you can stay there.
Okay.
You're going to read from there. I'll read from my page. I just thought that it's important that we give you a brief summary of our findings. You heard that for the individual cases. Sorry. Oh, they want me to.
Okay.
Because the mics are there.
Well, just gender activists, not communicators.
I'm sorry about that. I think for the findings, it's important that you remember that the individual cases that have been presented to you, each case has its own individual sexual harassment recommendations. But what we found is that in most cases, HR failed to follow procedures in terms of the Employment Equity Act, particularly the Code of Conduct on how to deal with sexual harassment now, and the SABC's own policies. The findings that relate a strong perception amongst all the people that came to see us exists that HR and senior managers collude and cover up for perpetrators in cases of sexual harassment. And often there is poor and inapt handling of cases. There is a strong fear of loss of jobs in speaking truth to power. There is lack of trust and lack of confidence in HR at the institution and the SABC's ability to deal with gender-based violence and the discrimination in the workplace. Of all the cases that we dealt with, no alleged perpetrator was ever suspended or found guilty of sexual harassment. Those charged would often get lesser findings. I think Fana covered that. HR and senior managers demonstrated a lack of knowledge and understanding of human rights statutes. We covered that also. Most of the complainants want redress in the form of a proper hearing so that they can confront the alleged perpetrators and have them account for the pain and suffering that they have put them through. All complainants except for 2 who were freelancers. All complainants except for 2 were freelancers. Now this brings us to this whole notion, this cohorts of freelancers at the SABC. They are some of the people that experience the worst form of abuse and ultimate discrimination. You have the policy of the SABC at the moment vests excessive and almost all powers onto one person to be able to hire and fire freelancers. And power corrupts. So we find that sometimes HR is not even aware of who has been appointed as a consultant. So one of our recommendations is an urgent review of this particular policy so that there's more than one person or 2 people who have a say over the appointment and dismissal of freelancers. But also embedded in this particular thing, there's a big risk, reputational risk for the SABC. Because if you do not have control over who you appoint, you could bring in dubious characters. Reputation and SABC brand has suffered quite a lot of damage. You heard some of the statements that Mfana shared around what people think of SABC. One of the people said, SABC is like a brothel that is run by prostitutes. These are not very complimentary expressions, but people, and these are not external people. These are either people who used to work for the organization or are still employed in the SABC. I think we wouldn't be honest with you if we didn't emphasize the fact that based on the cases that we have seen, it would appear as though there are serious problems around gender-based violence within Lotus FM in KZN, as well as Channel Africa. our report goes into the details. Some of the problems are systemic, and I think most of them are in fact systemic. And the leadership, I don't think, has challenged some of the systems that makes it possible for gender-based violence to be so prevalent. It was quite interesting that it was on our return from KZN when Vanessa Govinder's book was released, and she is one of the people that we interviewed, because on release of her book in the Sunday Times, we were particularly concerned and wanted to know whether in fact the rape and the sexual assault that she describes in one of the chapters related to someone who was still in the employ of the SABC. And in fact, this particular person has been employed twice at the SABC. Out of that, we also got more details. And our view is that there has been far too many gender-based violent cases emanating from that channel for the SABC to not pay attention. Otherwise, it might be worse. I think these are mainly the findings, and Mpano will do the recommendation.
Because we have the document, I will just take the 3 minutes now and see when we felt that as a commission, SABC needs to hold a diversity management workshop to assist employees reduce the impact of various cultures that various employees bring to the SABC from various places and localities. The SABC sexual harassment policy needs to be reviewed, and I think we've said that. Not just reviewed, but take into consideration the international law, SABC policies and domestic law, the SADC protocol. There's only one protocol that specifically explains sexual harassment, which is the SADC protocol on gender and development. There are others as well, but I think that they infer sexual harassment. I think it's important for us to take a global picture on this. We felt that various divisions, we must have people responsible for human rights and gender equality matters, so that we were able to actually champion this cause. That there is almost, we found that there is parity between women and men in terms of employment at the SABC, but that is, we found that there's a veil, is something that is actually inside, they are not looking into issues of gender-based violence. I must also mention, Chair, that we did not have any complaint from LGBTQ people who have actually complained around issues of sexual harassment. But it does not mean that SABC should not look into that. SABC should urgently establish a structure outside the human resources that would implement the recommendations of this commission. That's the recommendation actually put before the board and before the HR board subcommittee to monitor the implementation thereof. So I think those are just very few general recommendations, but most of the recommendations, as I've been going on, they were just included inside each and every case that I've actually dealt with, and there are other overarching recommendations. I must thank the SABC Chair for allowing itself to be open up, because organizations don't want to open up when it comes to these issues. They will always hide them and don't ventilate these issues, and they'll never deal with them. And CEO and your team, I think this is very good. I think it's leadership for us to say other organizations should look up to the SABC to say if we have these issues, investigate them, deal with them, so that at least people will know and will develop a culture of human rights within the institution. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Member Robertson, that shows you. We will now take questions from the media. And just to say that the media statement will be in your inboxes any minute from now. So you will have much more detail to take away with and actually internalize the report. We'll start with the first round of questions. Any hands? Please mention your name and where you're from when you ask the question, please.
This is Nkateko Mabasa with the Daily Maverick. over here. Thank you for the detailed report.
I can see her, Chair.
Here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure if maybe this might be part of your scope, but a week ago, the SABC announced that we'll be doing some retrenchments. Are there systems in place to ensure that the part of the people who are retrenched are not the people who come up to lay a complaint and now might find themselves out of the company now that they've come to the commission? Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, please. Sorry, before the next question, would you prefer the commissioners to answer from there or to come to the podium? To come to the podium before, because of the mics? Okay, we'll take much more questions now. Please, sir. The mic is behind you.
My name is Penwell Lamini from the Sowetan, and I just need to get an understanding when the process started of the inquiry. You seem to indicate that a number of people did not come. Was there a communication from management which stated that people are obligated as SABC employees to come and present themselves?
Thank you very much. Next question, please. It's here.
Angela from SABC Radio News. I wanted to just get clarity on exactly how many cases came to your attention.
Thank you. Another question before we ask the commissioners to come to the front? That's it for this round. To Barbara.
Thank you. The question that you posed, Daily Maverick, on what would happen, would complainants not be affected by the retrenchments? There is most of the complainants, in fact all except for one, have already left the SABC, which is a typical process in sexual harassment, that because the system fails you, you end up leaving. There is one person who is still within the system, and in fact, SABC is looking into that matter where we felt that there was an element of victimization that would ultimately force the person out of the system. But you are quite right in terms of the monitoring of the implementation. It would be very useful for that particular thing to be looked at here. And then the second question was their statement. Yes, there was a statement. I think I did a media statement was circulated just before I started, and I think Fano was not able to come, but it was born. But you see, the problem with predators is that they are cunning, they are shrewd, and often they know how to work the system. Therefore, it doesn't matter what announcement you make, they will know the loopholes, they will know that they are not a judicial commission. So I have my rights as an employee, and they will go to the very unions that are supposed to protect the right of every worker to be protected from being forced to come, because we are not SABC staff. So yes, there was that announcement, but it still didn't change the fact that the commissions didn't have the power to force people to come. We are hoping that by reporting and identifying those who didn't come, when the cases get reopened, they will not have a choice to refuse, because now that entity will be different to ours.
I get a sense you're not satisfied.
Yes.
What you're asking is people internally were they encouraged?
No, what I'm asking, because an announcement and an instruction is a different thing. Like where I work, they would say a commission is sitting and is dealing with this case. If you are called by the commission, you will have to explain to so and so why, give us reasons why you shouldn't appear. Was there such an instruction that was given to managers to make sure that if somebody does not come, he faces consequences?
No, I don't think there was that kind of instruction, and I think part of the reason that instruction wasn't there was because, you know, when you deal with issues of sexual harassment, you also deal with people who want to maintain anonymity. So the managers didn't know even when we called the people. We didn't operate on the premises. We operated near SABC, and we made you see, our focus was to make it as comfortable as possible for those who chose to come. And in cases of sexual harassment, very often people do not want publicity. They want to remain anonymous. So we tried to be close enough for the SABC so that if you want to come and see us, you don't have to take a day off and explain why you're taking a day off. So that instruction would not have worked. And then statistics. Can I say the handouts that we're going to give you has got a detailed breakdown of the statistics?
I think you should. Oh, yeah, exactly. Can we have the second round of questions? We'll start here.
Thank you very much. My name is Belana Pahadi. I'm from News 24. Just wanted to go the same footsteps that my brother has taken there. I think he wanted to know firstly, and I want to know as well, if the SABC had perhaps with the board tried to instruct those who are alleged to be perpetrators to come and address some of the issues of which, I mean, there are allegations of which have been brought through, because I'm assuming without an inclusive outcome, you might not be able to make informed recommendations. Somebody, if he was not part of the outcome, was not part of the hearing, then he might not have been able to be in that particular position, or you be in a position to make recommendations. And the second one from me, I want to know, in terms of freelancers, as far as I know, is that they are not party to anything that the SABC has to offer in terms of counseling and whatsoever. If they are found that indeed, because you are asking that the commission's, hearings sit again and they try to investigate what had happened once more, especially the ones which were dismissed. If it was found that a manager was indeed a perpetrator, what would happen to the freelancer? Will they get counseling? What will happen to them? I'm thinking that will you be able to make recommendations that they be reinstated, or some monies be paid for them, took back to them? That's it.
Thank you, Polani. Next question, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Kaya from the Star newspaper. I'd like to know regarding the time frames. Does the recommendations have time frames for the SABC to implement them in terms of when the disciplinary proceedings should be instituted and when the people who are alleged to be perpetrated in sexual harassment are suspended? The second part of that question would be, will the Commission be involved in any way in overseeing the implementation of its recommendations, or does your work end here? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question?
Yes, Angela from SABC Radio News again. I wanted to just get clarity also on the time frame, on the periods that people were abused in, those who reported it, when did it happen? Yes.
Okay, that's the last one for this round. The next one is going to be the last one, so if you haven't asked, let's try for the next one.
Thank you. I'll start with your question, Angela. Most of the cases are historical. It's good not to have a limitation on time because of the earlier situation I explained when people leave the organization. But when we investigated, the people had reported on time. That they came to the commission now is because there was sloppiness in handling the case, and they didn't feel there has been justice for them. The time frames, that would be the two questions. We recommended that it must be done immediately. And when we presented what we've presented to you, to the board, in fact, what we've presented to you is exactly what we presented to the board of the SABC. So the slides haven't been changed, so you've got it fresh out of the oven. The recommendation was that it should be done immediately, and the CEO was tasked with that responsibility. He has had discussions with us to ask us what did we have in mind, and we have actually given him an indication of the kind of structure that we thought would work. We had not included ourselves in the process because, there's a tendency amongst consultants, people say, to create work for themselves. We felt that we did the investigation and we've got the findings, we've got a pile of information. Those who are going to implement will really have very minimal investigation to do. But the chair of the SABC board, when we presented, felt that he would be more comfortable if we had a role in monitoring implementation. So, because the report has just been released, the SABC needs to also put their ducks in a row for that implementation. The impression that we get is that the organization would like us to have a role in the process. And then that leads me to the other question of the gentleman next to Tandeka, where you were asking about counseling. That's very important because we had a counselor during the course of the hearings, and at the conclusion of the work, we called the complainants back so that we could give, they were the first, and we thought that we needed to also give them some kind of feedback so that when we make findings, they know where they stand. And the SABC had said the complainants could have access to the social worker who was part of the company that provides the service, free of charge. And we could actually see the positive impacts of the counseling on the complainants. I mean, one of the women who had been so badly traumatized, the last case, I almost didn't recognize them because there had been a total transformation from someone who was so depressed, so tearful all the time, not particularly well presented. And on that day,
she came and she was such a beautiful woman, you know, very confident. And so yes, counseling can have an impact, and we have made a recommendation that because these people do not have jobs and they are unable to afford medical aid, this counseling service should continue to be provided. I think, Mfana, you will come and take the next.
Very democratic chairperson.
Thank you. We're gonna go to the last round of questions now. Please go ahead. You had, Auntie Barbara, I think what Pelane is pointing to is the question on the instruction again. I think it was asked in the last round as well. Maybe you can deal with it when you start answering the next round of questions. So Pilari, we'll come back to that one.
My name is Brian from The Citizen. Perhaps my question could best be answered by SABC management. I just wanted to find out what the corporation is going to do to repair its damaged reputation.
Thank you.
It's Penal Lamina again from the Sowetan. Just need an honest answer from my panelists. Was there a stage during the sessions where you felt what you are hearing needs the attention of the police?
Thank you.
The police?
Yes.
Angela from SABC Radio and News again. Were there any executives implicated?
Thanks, Angela. We started from this round. This is the final one. Okay. Dr. Joyce.
You know, I'm not sure when you refer to executive, because there are so many layers at the SABC. There are managers that this, but it's safe to say there are some managers who are implicated. Whether those, you know, the GMs, the people under GMs, I don't want to say those are executives and so on, so with that, but I could say that they are
People
in positions of leadership
and
and power.
Yeah.
It's safe to say that. The other question is about management. The other issue is about the police. Yeah, there were instances where even survivors said to us, "I wish I could actually have laid a charge on this matter." You know. The other issue that I've also picked up is that the SABC policy does not. We are going to have a discussion. You know, we have a Sexual Offences Act in this country. Sexual harassment falls squarely under Sexual Offences Act. So, which I think the policy should also take into consideration, that SABC should also refer some of the cases to the police if there is really extreme sexual violence cases. So yeah, there were some of those cases. But yeah, even people came before us. Chair, I must speak to the issue of I think, you know, when we try and do something noble, like ensuring that the commission is independent, is able to function optimally without the interference of management. Another question would say, well, the management should actually press them hard to come. They were doing that on their own. Is it the right term, Peril? If they did not want to come. Because we offered them the opportunity. Remember, South Africa is a constitutional country. People have a right to remain silent. But they've been given an opportunity. But I think, as Chair said, we had an ample of, and also recommend. We're not saying because we're not there, therefore we're going to try, we're going to say we are guilty. But we're saying we have recommendations to say, in our view, we feel this has happened, maybe it did not happen, but we feel that the SABC should take the following steps in relation to that particular case. So, they're not going to actually run, but it's part of that process. So I think those will be two. I think the last question, Cisnewo, relates to management. Relates to me.
How is
The reputation of the SABC.
Thank you. I think I just want to first thank the Commission for the work that they've done. I think it's quite comprehensive, and the board has accepted the report in its entirety and has tasked us to ensure that we implement it speedily. In terms of your question on reputation, I think the focus is not on building reputation but on doing what is right. In matters like these, because of the seriousness, you can't paper over the cracks. You have to deal with these quite aggressively, unflinchingly. Already we've engaged with the Commission to say what would be the action plan in terms of dealing with these. And for me, a reputation will follow. We just need to do what is right for the organization as well as for the employees. Thanks.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We've come to the end of our briefing, and thank you for coming across. Have a great day. Bye.